And everyone will go back. We're going to, staff are beavering away on all the changes that did, which is going really well, I understand. So we're going to just do a little leapfrog through to the Waikato Regional Theatre funding deed. Now you'll see that it's in two parts. One part's in open and one part's in excluded. So Sean, how do you intend to manage that?
Perhaps we talk in open, and if there's a need to go into PX, I suggest we do so if there's a need.
Okay, do you feel free to come to the table? Oh, so we can see the whites of your eyes. Yeah.
Through the Mayor, just to introduce the paper, this paper is regarding the funding deed that or the draft funding deed we have in place for Council's contribution to the Waikato Regional Theatre project. You'll recall we met on this in December, and we were asked to make an adjustment to the paper as a result of that meeting, and we're basically bringing that paper back with the adjustment. So the item starts at page 656 of your diligent reports, but the clause that we referred to that required a change is clause 28, which is on page 659, which effectively changed the figure quoted that was $18 million in remaining funding to be paid towards the project to reflect the full amount of $25 million. So I've asked Mark Renner from Tompkins Wake to also come along if you have any questions relating to the deed, and other than that I'm happy to open it to the floor.
Okay, hang on, let me just catch up with the page. Okay, so councillors, are there any questions? No? Seriously, no?
Sorry, Paula, I'm still...
Catching up?
659?
Yes. 656. Oh, have I got it? It starts at 656.
656.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure I find the quantum.
Yes, and I was referring to...
there it is.
Oh, have I got the numbers wrong? 0.28. Oh, sorry, is it 658?
Perfect. I have that was an issue I raised. I'm now really comfortable.
Right. It seems that... Councillor Pascoe?
I had questions that I raised last time and I got satisfactory answers to. You're not looking for those questions again?
No, not really.
No. Okay.
No. Brilliant. Well, I think it's always good if councillors ask questions that are satisfactorily resolved, then we've made progress, haven't we? All right, so there actually are no questions unless they were only on Zoom, but there's nobody on Zoom at the moment. Okay, so moved by Councillor Bunting, seconded by Councillor Pascoe. We'll go to the vote, but does anybody want to talk to it? Any debate? Councillor Pascoe?
I'd like to speak to this. I'm reasonably comfortable having worked with Sean and with Mark from Tompkins Wake and a small elected member team of having worked through this this funding agreement. And as much as possible, I think we've mitigated many of the build risks. The funding agreement should provide a greater element of comfort for council as governors in the spending of ratepayers' funds on this project. However, it is not fail-safe or without risk. Time delays, change in the building contractors, the Europaras, and the innovative design of the new theatre are risks that have already been experienced, and I suspect that there will be others. In my view, the bill needs to be closely monitored, and I would expect Sean and his team to be all over this until 2023, when the final payment is made and the build is complete. It's also important, before you move out, Richard, also important in my view that the CEO has more than a passing interest in the project, and that the CEO establishes and then maintains regular involvement and oversight in the project right up to the completion date. The project has both financial and reputational risk for council, even though it's not our project, it's being run and managed by others, and even more so, the risks are a little bit remote to us, so we need to make sure that we've got the appropriate oversight. The other concern is that the build will straddle 2 council terms, and it is incumbent on us now to make sure that we have a process in place that does not create or leave an unfair legacy on both ratepayers and the new council should any unexpected events occur.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Paula. I too will be supporting the motion in front of us with the amendments. But I too agree with Councillor Pascoe that this is high risk. That does not mean that I don't support it. That does not mean that the theatre, once complete, will be a wonderful enabler and cornerstone of the south end of Victoria Street's revitalisation. But inherently, and life experience has taught this council, when you undertake any significant project like this, there is risk. The risk is heightened for the very reasons that, in fact, council is not controlling this, but will be held to account if it goes wrong. Councillor Pascoe's right again, that it bridges 2 terms, which is also dangerous. Having said that, General Manager Sean and the Chief Executive are well aware of our concerns. They are well aware of the questions we've asked. They are well aware of our sensitivity about blowouts and failures. And they are well aware of that in the context of budget blowouts on other building structures over the last 5-10 years that council has either been involved in directly or indirectly, and will understand the importance of keeping us well updated. And so I will find some comfort knowing that both Richard and Sean are our conduit at the coalface to make sure this does not come back to bite us, and that it is in fact the wonderful economic enabler we all think it's going to be. And with that, I'm happy to support it, noting the risk.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Gallagher.
Yeah, thank you. I certainly endorse the very wise words of the Chair of Finance and also the Deputy Chair of Economic Development, because obviously if we're looking at portfolios, both are very much part of this, and certainly the finance is the monitoring to make sure that the project comes back within budget, and we still continue to, as a key stakeholder, scrutinise it very closely. Obviously, Ewan talks about the potential future major economic, social benefits as we move forward. I think I certainly look beyond the opening, which hopefully will be an incredible moment of celebration for our region, because this is a regional theatre with a regional national funding component. But I certainly want to see that while we're not as such involved in the day-to-day management, we will be having an annual contract, we will have an ongoing financial relationship, and I want to ensure that there is very clear ongoing community benefits for what I hope is to be truly a regional community theatre. And there's a range of things that happen, you know, within that incredible building. I do at this point want to shout out to you know, Kelvin and the broad Momentum team for their vision in this project. And while we are here to make sure that we do the due process, the due audit, the due diligence, all of that that's been alluded by Rob and by Ewan, we're all subject to this project landing appropriately. We're all incredibly excited for its vision and the incredible difference it will make, dare I say it, to the image, the attractiveness, and the the perception of Kirikiri or Hamilton in terms of being a very vital, amazing place to live, work and visit.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson.
Thanks. Just a few comments been sparked off by some of the other speakers. The project actually already spans 3 terms when you talk about the original problems with the Founders Theatre, and it'll be a 4th term by the time it's finished. So it's certainly something that's had the buy-in deservedly from several councils. It'll also significantly increase the look, feel, ambience of the south end of the city, and no doubt increase the apartment values in that end of the city as well. Not that anyone in here has an interest in that area, but I'd also like Councillor Gallagher to shout out to Kelvin and Leonard, who put the first proposition to us. Some of you will remember an earlier council meeting. They did a good job. And the reason that I'm not worried that outsiders are involved and we're not in control is we wouldn't have got this without the outside involvement. Significant funding came to this area because it was a community-led project, not a council-led project. We would have been stumping up with almost everything, apart from a little bit through the regional council, had it not had that community support. And I think that's the important thing to note with this, and I'd like to thank Momentum for the work they've done. I mean, we might all quibble about little aspects here and there, design issues, problems with the neighbours and with the heritage of the area and that sort of thing, but they've pulled it together and it is going to happen. And I guess it's a little bit like the stadium in some ways. A lot of us had quibbled about it before it was built, but once it's built, we sure as hell all used it. And I think that's the sort of thing that will happen with this as well.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, I'm going for Rite of Reply. I moved it, so I'll go next.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Ms Southgate. Yeah, look, just very quickly, I've sort of, like Dave, been sparked off by others, and I think Kelvin Eglinton and his colleagues just need a huge pat on the back, really. Kelvin's looked like a haunted man at times in the last 6 to 9 months, and looks about 5 years older than he is, you know, but he's got through it. And they've got through it. And as Dave says, I don't think people, maybe they'll realise in time just how lucky we've been as a council to have an organisation come in and take that job off us, but also take 3/4 of the funding obligations off us as well. You know, when you compare that back to the Claudens Events Centre, which this council had to fund from memory pretty much, well, on its own, it has made an enormous difference. And with my Central City advisory hat on, again, you guys are right. This is absolutely vital centrepiece for the Central City and for the riverfront. From this, it's going to spark a whole lot of change. I personally see the theatre as opening up that area, the pedestrian cycle bridge as the other big linchpin, and I think the museum, all along there, opportunities are going to open up. And there's some other things that we know of as well, which are in the works, which are not yet public. Yeah, look, it's fantastic, and I congratulate Momentum, and I thank Sean for the oversight as well. Yeah, good stuff.
Thank you. Before your Rite of Reply, Councillor Bunting, I'll just add a few things, but saying thank you for progressing this work to you both and the team, because, you know, it's taken a while to reach full agreement on this. Absolutely support you and Rob's comments around the risk. Pushed and pushed, as you know, for council to remain at the table and have oversight. And I think that is really important because at the end of the day, our portion is public money. But as Dave actually said, we only had a certain amount of money, whether it would have been used to restore Founders, which would look nothing like this Waikato Regional Council, Regional Theatre, thank you. Throwback to the old days. So this shows the leverage that you get when you combine partnership with other people. You get more bang for your buck, which is something that we actually need to encourage, because given the financial constraints that we have coming over the next 10 years, we can't go it alone on many things. So, hopefully it keeps to time. I'm looking forward to when they turn the first bit of soil. It's not too far away, right? So well done to everyone involved. I do remember the first day that Leonard came in with his proposition, and it changed the way we were thinking about spending our money. And I don't think we'll be sorry, but I do think we have to show public oversight at every step until it's fully operational and successful. Thank you. Councillor Bunting, it's your right to reply.
Thank you, and I thank thank everybody for the comments earlier on too, and many thanks to be made. A lot has been said about momentum, and I remember when around a fireside with Mark Ingle, we were talking about the concept of momentum. The idea of it was to depoliticise huge projects like this and things like the Avantidrome and the likes, the stadium, etc. You used to build these things and then lose your job as a result. So people shied away from these amazing projects. So when Momentum was started up, it really was aimed to bring councils together and work in a separate thing. So I think we're seeing the real strength of that model right now, which is really exciting. When we talk about which councils to thank, it takes me right back. In fact, the first ever conversation I had with our chief executive was when I was doing the breakfast show on the Breeze. I think that's how long ago it was. And they just shut Founders Theatre. And that's when this whole darn thing started. And transpires right now, we've got a way better model than we could have dreamed of, I believe. I think we're going to get a fantastic result. And it's only costing us 25 million. Now, if we put 25 million in, or around that amount that we're putting in, then for a new theatre, boy oh boy, we'll be lucky to get the Meteor for that. So it's pretty darn good. And I'm really looking forward to the day the days that I really enjoy at the Waikato Stadium, when I bump into those anti-stadium protesters at rugby games by the bar and toasting at the theatre saying, see, we were right all along. So I also want to thank Sean for the effort he's put into this, and our friends at Tompkins Wake as well. It's looking pretty darn good, so let's get on with it. I'm feeling really confident with this deed. I think it's due to some pretty fine-tooth comb scrutineering. It's come out pretty solid. It's not without risk, as we know, but we know the consequences of those risks as well.
So it's been moved. Who was the seconder, sorry?
Rob,
thank you. I knew somebody had done it. Thanks very much. We'll go to vote on the board, please. Is Councillor Forsyth back in the room, or? No, she's still here. Okay.
The motion is carried unanimously, noting that Councillor Forsyth is currently absent.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. Okay. We're back. We're back again to the long-term plan consultation. So, over lunch, quite a lot of it's been happening, I understand, to address the concerns and requests of council. How do you intend to go through these, Sean?
Looking to get the staff have worked through the various changes suggested by elected members in the morning, and we would like to try and get those all resolved now. So I think they're all sitting in a list there somewhere, which will be up on screen shortly.
Right, there's not a lot there to go through. It's just a small list. Okay, so I'm going to move it as a suite, part from the one that you've moved around the, okay, the additional, eh? Would you, you'd prefer to move it? Jeff's going to second the majority with me, but, but you're welcome to move, and I'll second your motion. Thank you. Right, let's go down the list. Can we scroll down to where we've made some change? Yeah. So,
Would you?
so first of all, we've got the one that addresses the unhighlighted intersection work, which will sit underneath that. The second one is an update to the map about the central city boundaries and the dotted line. So I'd imagine that both of those are pretty straightforward. Yeah, I think we should run through them. Yeah.
Did you want me to run through them?
Yeah. Would you like us to run through those?
I think we should, otherwise
Sure.
we're going to lose track of where we're at.
Okay, so I will try and give the agenda page reference as we go through them. The page numbers up there refer to the consultation document itself. So the first of those is on page 22 and 24, which is 683 in the agenda. Julie, do you want to kind of talk to what the change is?
Yes, so this was to pick up Councillor Bunting's feedback about trying to add some wording and to indicate that there are other intersection changes that are included in the budget. So we have included some wording in there and attached that link that will take people back to the funded project list. Thank you.
Okay, so the next one is on page 34, which is 689 of the agenda.
So this one's to pick up Councillor McPherson's comment about the map, so addressing that to make sure that it is more obvious about the area that we're talking about. And then number 3, we have some words on page 34 that we're going to copy across to 35 to make it clearer within the options. So the words are, this revenue will go towards public transport and mode shift initiatives which provide opportunities for people to get to and from work without needing their cars.
Okay, can we pause there, because I think there's a question. I think we'll take questions as they come, because it might be easier to Councillor Bunting.
Just a very small syntax one there. With regards to the word will, should we replace that with would? Because otherwise it's presupposed that it's already happening.
Yes.
Great, thanks. And I think there's one in
Deal.
4 as well, or IV. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks, guys.
No
And
one
then-
else on that one?
And then same page, option 1 and option 2, to update the wording there. So again, to add that wording in about making it clearer why there's no impact on rates, that we will be spending the money from the revenue on the initiatives, and changing the rates impact number currently goes down 21, we'll change that to 0. And then option 2 is again just adding that additional text saying this option does not introduce the parking charges around the fringe of the city central city, and means we will not be able to spend the proposed revenue on additional alternatives to public transporting.
Okay, so pause there, because I see a few slight frowns or quizzical expressions,
It's
so
not
I'm just
alternatives
making
to
sure.
public transport.
Oh,
Question?
sorry, I'm trying to read too fast. Spend the proposed revenue on additional alternatives to public transport
No,
and
no.
motion.
No, then.
Can you ask the question out loud so we can, sorry? No, it's a good
Oh,
question.
I was just, maybe just get rid of alternatives too, because we're not looking at alternatives to public transport.
It should,
Additional, we'll get rid of
already have that.
alternatives.
Well, Jeff is, to be fair.
My apologies, I think we were typing too fast.
See, I could see you were frowning, Sarah. I thought you spotted something there.
It is.
so I think on additional public transport or mode shift initiatives, I think would probably be the correctest wording.
Correctest word, Sean. Okay, carry on, please.
Okay, so now we're on to, so the next one is on to page 45, which is 694 in the agenda.
And this is to update the second bullet point, to add the following wording. 4 million in 21-22 to demolish the Founders Theatre building and create a new vibrant park space in line with our West Town Belt Master Plan.
And then the next one is on page 51, which is, excuse me, 697.
So this is, we've tried to add some words to be more clear about what this will be spent on. So we've used the words, instead of services and facilities, we'll say the things that make visiting the gardens easier and more accessible. And then in option 2, on that same page, we've added, change the wording so we make it clear that it does not impact the overall Hamilton Gardens development plan.
So being specific that it's spending less on those extra initiatives, the Hamilton Gardens development plan is not impacted.
Just when we pause a bit, just want to go back to, I'm sorry to go back because I've just been percolating a bit more slowly in my head. The one about the Founders Theatre and
Number
the
5.
wording suggests that it's a fait accompli. I pick up on Martin's point about signalling that the preferred option would see the demolition, but it is only a preferred option. It does say here are some of the ways we're investing in our city, and then basically it tells people we will be demolishing the Founders Theatre, but that's coming ahead of the decision.
Look at the resolution you passed, and I'm only help me with bring me up the wording of what was passed by the vote of council. The staff recommendation was approves option 2, and I just want to see if this lines up with what Wahine went through, and it says remove the theatre and create a multi-purpose park. 3.57 million be included as the council's preferred option. So the word is preferred option. So that was the resolution. So all I'm doing is I'm just giving word to the wording.
I think you're right, and I think we're both saying the same thing. Happy to include and to flag to people that it could be demolished, but it's a proposal. It's not something we absolutely going to do if the majority of public.
As a preferred option, as the preferred option.
Preferred option, something like that.
Yes, yeah, we can add those words.
Add the word preferred.
So maybe 4 million in 2021 as council's to fund council's preferred option,
which
to demolish
and create a multi-purpose park. So the word, as long as you've got preferred.
Yes.
So that's a proposal.
Yes.
It's not over till it's over, Rover. Okay, sorry, carry on.
Thank you. Page 57.
Just a point of order just around that. Martin, Councillor Gallagher talked about read the motion, which didn't use the word demolish, but used the word remove.
We can definitely change that to word remove. Yep. To remove.
Remove implies that it's going somewhere, other than the big dump. Property rentals. People might come up with other ideas to use it.
We thought we might move it down over there. The word at the moment is impeach. Yeah, that would. Okay.
Okay, carry on.
Can we just get confirmation that council is still happy with the word demolish?
You've got word demolish, which is fact. Preferred, which is fact.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm happy. Maxine's not going to die in a ditch over this one.
No, we can't.
Okay, so the next one is page 57, which is the gully option. So we're going to replace the wording that says with less funding in the first 5 years to say instead the majority of the spending in the first 5 years of the plan. And then we've got that twice.
No, sorry, that's the opposite of that.
Sorry. With the majority of spending in the first 5 years of the plan is option 1.
Last 5 years.
Oh, sorry, last 5 years. And then option 2 is, again, change the wording to say brings some spending forward from the last 5 years to the first 5 years of the plan. We're also going to add a second sentence to change the wording of the second paragraph to make it simpler. So delete the second paragraph totally and say, although the rates impact for both options appears the same, this is based on an average across 10 years. Under this option, we take debt sooner, which means we will be closer to our debt to revenue limit in the first 5 years.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's accurate. Oh, isn't it? Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you.
I don't know if we skipped over or I was a bit slow on that 8, page 51. Should we be saying this means we will have less to spend on the things? I mean, that goes with anything. Shouldn't it just like, this means we have $250,000 less? I mean, rather than tag it to the spend on the things that make visiting the gardens easier, because all money is equal in terms of what we do or do not make.
Because that proposal was specific to the revenue collected to be spent on those particular initiatives.
Okay.
That's why we specified it in the CD wording there.
Okay.
You could take out on the things, so to spend on making visiting. That's a cement.
Yeah, no, I'm relaxed.
Okay.
Thanks for your
Okay.
clarity, help.
Okay, page 74 and 75, which is the looking beyond bubble map. This is the orange bubble containing the text for the public transport improvements. 41 million will be moved to reflect what councillors have asked.
Any questions? No? No. Okay.
On pages 19, 30, 39, 45 and 55, this is where we have the text that's currently in blue referencing the full list of projects either funded or unfunded. We will change those to an orange colour so they pop out a bit more, so people can see that that's a list they can go and look at. Councillor Maxine asked for that.
Okay, hang on a minute, let me just catch up with that one. Instead of blue, it'll be
Yes.
orange.
Yes.
Does that do it for councillors? Anybody got concerns with that? Question about that? Pink. No, we're just joking, Natalie, don't be worried. Okay, let's carry on.
Okay, the last one there is reference all of the compliance targeted rate throughout the consultation document to say governance compliance targeted rate.
Right, got it. I think everyone's happy with that.
Moving on to the submission form, the changes under priority 1. So sorry, these don't have numbers that I can talk to, but priority 1, the first option around providing safer routes for biking, scooting and skating, we will change the word investing to spending so we have consistency throughout the document. Okay. Priority 2, introduce paid parking around the fringe of the... Sorry?
Oh, sorry, I was sort of reading ahead so that you've changed all the investing to spending
Yes,
and you just
throughout
consistent.
the, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Introduce paid commuter parking around the fringe of the central city. Option 2, we're going to change the text so it's clearer. So we're going to say instead, keep as is, which means we will not be able to spend the proposed revenue on additional, we'll take out alternatives there, additional public transport or mode shift. 11, 2,
Okay, everybody happy with that? Right, cool.
Priority 4, charging for the car parking at Hamilton Gardens. Under option 1, we will change the wording where we talked about services and facilities to actually talk about improve the things that make visiting the gardens more accessible. And that's the same for option 2.
Any questions on that one? Concerns? Yes, there could be. Jeff?
Making the gardens easier and more accessible. Okay, I just... we will not be able to improve the things that make visiting the gardens easier and more accessible. Why not?
So in the consultation document, we actually describe what we mean by services and facilities, and what we say there is things like directional signage, shading, maybe some improvements to some of the public facilities.
But are we saying we can't do these things because of this? We might do some of those things anyway. Why are we being so
Would you like
blunt
the word
about this
additional in there?
trade-off? It just.
So this is in relation to that 500,000.
Yeah.
Simply saying, because that funding was tagged to that expenditure, we're saying the option is if we don't generate that revenue from the parking, then the projects that would have gone towards.
Additional?
Things to make it easier, it's consistent with what we've just done
Yes.
in the other area of the public transport.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
We will do some, but we can do more with that.
That's right. Yeah. Yes.
Or you'd be able to use those funds to improve the things that make visiting. It would be the same thing, wouldn't it?
Okay, well, it's to do with
You
further
did.
improving that accessibility, isn't it? But councillor Hamilton, you've got a question on this one? Help us out here.
Yeah, look, it's more semantics, but it was from Councillor Mark's
Excuse me, guys.
request to change the word spend to invest. We've made everything spending. Aren't we not investing in our 5 priorities and investing in social, cultural outcomes?
I was going to say the same thing. My preference was to put invest throughout, not spend throughout.
As long as it's consistent. That's my point.
Do you have a problem with that?
I don't have a problem.
Natalie, you got an issue with that in terms of its effect on the reader? I think invest is a lovely positive word.
It does. We got some feedback at the last annual plan about using the word investing on a project, and it was challenged that it was actually spending money. So I should have said spend. That's why I said spend, to avoid that one particular member of our community that will pick us up on it. But there's a whole lot of other members of our community that may not. So yeah, I'm happy either way.
That person has every right to submit.
That's fine.
Let's go back to invest. Well, let's start positive.
Absolutely happy.
Let's see how that flows.
With respect, we are investing for dividends. Those dividends are not always economical, they're also social, cultural and environmental.
Gosh, that's said by the chair of the Economic Development Committee.
Okay, so I think there's no. If we change to invest consistently across, let's do that. I don't think anyone's got a violent disagreement apart from that one member of the public.
No.
Very good.
I'll come and talk to Amy about just some words for that. If we just talk about the last change, which is in the submission form, above that last block where people can write stuff.
Page 434.
And priority 5, in the second line, speed up by still spending 29 million by spending more, but spending more, it should read.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's been the
Second by should be a but.
Should be a but. Well spotted. Right, and the last paragraph?
Is at a heading in that above that section, says anything else you want to tell us, and add some additional text there saying we have lots of projects included in this long-term plan. We want to hear your views on any of these projects. You can see the full list at da-da-da.
Da-da-da.
I'll just go
I'm tempted to be a little bit clearer than that and say we have lots of other projects, because they can see some, but it's a matter of semantics too, because I guess we're trying to alert them to the but there's more, you know. Okay? Does anybody have any view on that? I'm out. Richard?
It's all good. You don't have an issue?
I don't have any issue with you wanting to change that wording.
Lots of other projects, or lots of additional projects, whatever you want. Other?
If no one else has any issues with that, that's fine.
I know it is semantics, but it's what it talks to the people about. There is more. Okay. Any questions outside of that or concerns on either the engagement document or the submission form? if you're still really unhappy in any way, and I think now's the time to say, because it would be really good when we take this out, notwithstanding our political differences across the content, that we can go, here is a really good document, now it's in your hands, you tell us. So, and it'd be nice if we could all do that together. Okay, there's silence on that, so I'm going to take it as is. And going back to the resolutions now, I've moved all of them, and no, except Ewan's one, because I wanted to profile that as a new one. I've seconded that, however. Ewan has put that, and I've seconded it. I think you can talk to it. So we'll do that one first, if you don't mind, because then I would like to get into debate about the overall scheme of things and give everybody a fair bite at that debate in the broad. So, Ewan, do you want to speak to your...
Staff could quickly bring up, let everybody read it for 5 seconds, and then I'll... So there was some discussion today. A lot of information is used to build the foundation for what we use to predict our future growth and our future needs of the city are. We heard from Audit New Zealand that they were comfortable, but they asserted that good practice would be for an occasional peer review of that information. This amendment does not stop the current journey we're on. It's dynamic in the sense that it will enable some new data that's coming out in March to be contemplated, and then it will be paired reviewed, and once we've gone through public consultation, heard all the feedback, that peer review will help reassure us that all the foundation stuff that we have underpinning the long-term plan is sound. And I'm happy to speak to it.
We'll get questions on that. No, we're just explaining the motion. On that respect, and the way it's worded, when it refers just to growth projections and the demographic element, I probably don't want to second it. I thought you were going beyond into sort of an economic assumption of the future. So if there's another seconder.
I tried to start as broadly as possible, and Jen managed to hammer me down.
You've got to push back more than that, mate.
Well, because this is a new motion, is there anyone from staff who'd like to speak to it? Not speak against it, just speak to any implications, or because we understand the intent. And then...
Where is Jen?
Going to do that? Jen.
Jen, have you got...
Jen.
She's coming. She's just...
Do you want to speak to this, and just in terms of any ramifications for council?
Any ramifications for council?
Well, I want to understand is if you see any roadblocks to this, because on the face of it, it's an external look at the growth projections, and that's all.
Yes, I think that Councillor Yuan explained it well, in that we are bringing back shortly, once we've got the latest population projections, and Nydia have done their household projections, we're bringing back that information anyway. That's a useful time to do a peer review of that information, which is the underlying information that sets the growth projections set a lot of the things like revenue and our growth line that underpins the infrastructure requirements in the LTP.
No, I get that. I guess I thought it was also going into sort of the broad parameters of economic, but I'm okay with that. I'll stay where I am with your seconding you.
Your Worship, could I suggest that it doesn't quite meet the bill, though, for a little bit the reason you're talking about, because it ties it all to the NIDIA growth projections, which is for timing reasons needed, but there are other things like there's various ANZ Bank analyses.
So
And it should have some words at the end.
So hold that thought. 'Cause I'm
Bearing in
taking-
mind or considering.
This is questions of Ewan as to what.
Okay, should it not, Ewan, have an issue at the end, points at the end saying something like taking into consideration current economic and growth analysis available in the community, something like that.
And can I comment?
Yes.
Paula?
Should it not?
So to be honest, it's sort of implied by the independent piece of work that's been done. I mean, for someone to validate this, it's sort of implied, but Jen's doing this, so I think she wants to talk.
I would also say, Councillor McPherson, that in terms of delivering against the resolution, your resolution from November, that we won't just be bringing back NIDIA growth projections, we'll be bringing back an assessment of growth options for the city, and we'll have a broad look at that. So then at that point, whatever growth projections we go with, we will have that peer reviewed. So it will absolutely take account of other things in the market that impact in this space.
So given that statement,
Councillor Frieda?
I believe that's already booked in.
So Mayor Paula, it's not going to take anything away from Councillor Ewan's resolution. It provides some clarity. If it's added in, it's going to get done regardless.
Yep.
Is what Jen's saying. It's all going to be picked up and put through the wash.
Made the point.
Okay.
Yeah. So one way or another, it's covered.
Okay. All right. Any other questions around this? Questions at the moment. We will go into debate, of course. Question?
Yep, thank you, Chair. Look, I've previously, I think in the discussions asked that whether or not there would be alternatives to the University of Waikato and the NIDIA predictions that we've used in the past. And the response back from staff is that there's not too many other providers of that service in the New Zealand economy. Would we have difficulty in getting a peer review done that would be a true peer review, and not one that might necessarily be a matter of opinion shopping to get responses that we may want?
Apologies, but Richard, are you listening to this? Because
so I can.
I'm still trying to answer the previous question from over here.
I think it's really important that you hear all the questions from the members.
I can take that question. So you're right in that there are two main providers of demographic projections and demographic information, Stats New Zealand and NIDIA. But to Councillor McPherson's point, there is an opportunity for us to receive the new information and then come back to you with an approach that is appropriate for Hamilton from a growth projections perspective. Okay. I guess I don't want to preempt what that will be, whether that will be NIDIA or Stats or something else. The team are working really hard on that at the moment. It's really important for us that we get our growth projections as right as we possibly can.
Great.
So a peer review is either going to be a peer review of the calculation or the approach that we take, bringing in the information that we've got, or if we just straight use the NIDIA projections, it'll be a peer review of what NIDIA have done.
Okay, so you're confident that afterwards, after we've got that information in March next month, you'll be in a position to look at that and then decide where the sources might be to get an appropriate review or update of those figures?
Yes, absolutely. Well, now that this resolution is on the table, if it passes, the team will run that in conjunction in terms of looking for the right person to do something.
Okay, so it may not necessarily end up being what I would envisage could be a peer review. It might just be a review of the output in terms of not using another organisation that would have done the same job to start with.
Potentially, yes.
Yep, thank you.
Question is all gone now? Yeah? Okay, all answered. So you haven't got anything further to say because we're going to go into debate. The questions have been answered. I think everyone's understanding. You've moved, I've seconded. We're going to go into the debate about this one. You're the mover.
Yeah, look, I'll be very brief. My only motivation here is this is so important in so many ways that I just felt that it was important, having heard to a lot of commentary, that there was a second step verification as to the accuracy of this information. I think generally, in fact I'm confident generally, the staff do a tremendous job and that the information they provide us is accurate. There are a number of commentators outside the organisation that frequently raise objections and questions regarding the information we rely on, and this was a way of being able to provide some certainty as to the information that underpins many elements of our long-term plan. And I hope that it will give comfort to us all. There is no other motivation. I deliberately tried to craft it so that it met some of Ryan's concerns and Dave's concerns, and I clearly haven't got it quite right, but it's an attempt to capture the spirit of what I'm trying to achieve.
Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Look, happy to support this. If I understand the intent of the mover, I believe that it's to make what is probably an already very robust set of assumptions and a program of the 10-year plan even more robust, and to help protect us as elected members on the decisions we make. So happy to support.
Councillor Pascoe.
Look, I'm also happy to support this, but I think we should be bearing in mind that predictions are always predictions. And I think back to 3 years ago when we were doing the last long-term plan, we had a lot more comfort and a bit more certainty around the predictions then than we have now with COVID and the changes in our immigration policy and so forth. And even looking forward, medium term, short term, medium term, those predictions may change at the drop of a hat, month by month, week by week. So there will be some limited value, I suspect, from what process we are going to embark on. And I don't say we shouldn't do it for that reason, but I think we need to also be pretty cautious because there are millions and millions of dollars involved in some of our spends, our capital, and even our revenue spends that are predicated on the growth within the city, and so therefore we need to be mindful, careful and prudent that we spend that money when it's actually needed to be spent and not too far ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this. I again think it's a way of just looking through a different lens and having just a close look at this time of uncertainty, really, which is why I've come in and supported it. I think we heard from some pretty good and interesting economists in the lead up to the long-term plan who joined us on the odd Zoom meeting. Post-COVID, we heard a variety of different perspectives around the economy and what may or may not happen. And we're still in that what may or may not happen arena with top quality economists from around the country still in debate within their sector as to what's going to happen. So I think the opportunity to signal that we're going to tap into some of that thinking before we put the final thing together, I think is just useful. So it's just about, there again, about that transparent look at what we're doing. Yeah, doesn't undermine what we're already doing. And by the way, just to let you know that there is a day coming up at the University of Waikato. I'm not sure if it's only arrived in my calendar the other day. Limited, it's not an invitation to all, but we can get some councillors along, I think. So have a think whether you'd like to go to that day event at the University of Waikato and talk to James about it, if it's something that it would be good to have a couple of people go to. So anyway, I'll get the details circulated through James. Excellent. So we'll go to the vote on the board. And it just occurred to me, with technology, the public probably hearing this debate but can't necessarily see the motion. We probably should have read it out and just, you know. They can see the motion? They can see, oh, good, brilliant.
The motion is
go.
carried unanimously, noting that Councillor Forsyth is currently absent.
Brilliant. Right, now let's go back to the suite, which as you can see, I've moved and Deputy Mayor Taylor has seconded. We've had...
We just added one additional line to the bottom of the consultation list. Before you vote on it, we just want to make sure we have consistency between the submission form and the options that are presented in the consultation document, so we'll also look through those and change the word spend to invest or investing.
Right, perfect. You've had that clear, Steph, from council, so it's good. Thank you very much. So we'll go into debate as the mover. I just want to thank staff for all the considerable months and months and months of work, and that we've had a number of really proactive, interesting get-togethers as elected members, where we could really start at the base of an idea and flesh it out. And you know, when we had that day at the veranda where we had all of the information at our fingertips and some pretty robust conversation over 2 days, that was excellent. But also, even before that, what was excellent is that we've been alongside each other and setting the vision. Let's go back to the vision and why we're doing this for the community that underpins this, which is still the same with those well-beings that we're striving for. I've already spoken earlier in the day about financial concerns. I don't like to be in this position of having to post these rates whatsoever. But not liking is not the same as understanding that I have to, if the city is going to thrive in any shape or form. I have to. We've talked about the word spend versus invest. If we don't invest in our future, it's not going to be a very vibrant, thriving city. Also, in some respects, we have no choice but to tackle some of the fundamentally big, gnarly problems like water and the district plan. It's coming to us, we've got to tackle it. So I'm not making excuses and saying we have no choice, but I'm just saying there are really fundamental reasons with why we're starting here and sending this document out to the public. We'll hear from them as to what they like and what they don't like. We've all talked amongst ourselves in the meetings, over lunch. Some of us like this project better than others, and some like that project better than the others. We've got a pretty good balance of projects across the wellbeings in my view here. Really excited. Some of the press releases that have started to go out from the team are starting to generate discussion. There was a really good lot of reaction to the dome over the pool, for example, and that communications will continue. I want to make it really clear, I don't know whether the media will pick up on this or not, there are the priorities in the document, the nice looking document, but there is a whole lot more going on in this organisation around our core functions, and I want people to feel that they can look into that, not just take a chocolate off the top layer of the box, but really go down and choose from the whole variety of work that we do and understand what council's about, the value we drive. So I'm quite excited for the next phase. To be honest, you know, it's coming back to us for deliberation through some comprehensive hearings. So this isn't the end of the debate. This is the next step. Push it out to the public, put it in their hands, in their care, and look forward to what comes back. And thank you for the colleagues for the way that we've run these meetings. I've really appreciated it. You haven't made it difficult for me to chair this. You've brought real value to the table, and I want to say thank you very much for that. Councillor Bunting.
Thank you, Mayor Southgate. This is a document we're sending out to public. That's what we've been talking about today. This isn't the final sign-off of the long-term plan. The debate has been all around, is this a fit-for-purpose document? And I really want to thank Sean, Julie and Natalie in particular, along with your teams, for the huge work you've put into getting it to this point. I realise today might have been a bit like kind of trying to drive a Mr. Whippy truck anonymously through a daycare centre, or trying to carry a cat through a dog park. But thank you for the pain you went through with all that. We didn't talk about the font or the pictures or the size, but I'm sure we can bring that up another time. But in seriousness, while we were at a lunch break discussing our projects and stuff, you were working through, and we noticed that. So I'm very, very grateful for that extra work you've done on behalf of the community, actually, because, you know, the little points that I was pushing through about trying to make sure that people knew that there were more projects than just those highlighted, all that kind of stuff, that means a lot to our community. It means a lot to me. So thank you for your flexibility on that. I'm now confident that the community will have a fairly clear picture of what we're putting out to them, and the opportunity will be there for them to speak. I'm really happy, as in Mayor Paula's words, that they will be sure, or they will be cognizant of the fact there is a whole lot more than just those projects. So yay, thank you for that. Congratulate you, Mayor Paula, too, on getting us to this point, because after all, it is your document, supported by us, or, you know, activated by us, whatever it is. I'm pretty sure, looking by the early feedback we got, that people are just going to see a 9% rates rise. I think we've got to be ready for that, you know, and the discussions that ensue. But thank you so much for the great work, and let's get on with this and let the fun begin.
Councillor Pascoe?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And look, following on from Mark, it's always pretty difficult to get the words right, but he does. And look, I have the same support for Julie, Sean, Natalie and their teams. They've worked pretty hard over the holiday break, and at times with time pressures to get documents changed and to provide some pretty instant feedback that we've demanded. I think the work ahead now is largely with us, and that is to get out and sell this document to present this document to our community and to get the message across. And I think one of the things that we haven't done terribly well in the past, which I'd like to suggest we do better this time, is convince our community that if they do respond, we will listen to their responses, because sometimes we will get feedback where the majority are opposed to something and we'll still go ahead with it. So I think we need to be cognizant of that and convince them that we will listen to those responses. I'm sure in responding to Richard, there is more than one resident out there who will challenge the word invest and consider that it should be spending. And so we need to convince those residents, those ratepayers, and there's more than one, that investing sometimes is more than just spending, and that there are some good outcomes from those spends, and what benefits those spends will bring back to them and to the rest of the city. So I think the work's only been half done. The next step is really to get out there. We've got an innovative document. There will be some risks around an innovative document, but let's get out there and work our networks and come back with some very sound, hopefully anticipate some very sound responses to the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. What? It's gone quiet. No one else.
Wait, no,
I'm waiting. You called me?
I didn't see your name.
Well, it's up there. It's all right.
Well, we'll go to Martin with your permission, and then we'll go to Angela.
No, sure, it was up there. Look, obviously I just want to join others in thanking the entire staff team, and obviously they will sometimes bear with me with my perverse humour. But I think, you know, obviously you've you know, collectively you've done a heap of work around the detail. Councillor, the Chair of Finance, correctly talked about, and I mean all we're doing today obviously is we're approving a document. The decision about the structure of the document has been previously made in the previous meeting. The Chair of Finance correctly talked about the consistency of this LTP document with the previous one, and certainly will be very open to his analysis, because obviously one has to relate to the other. However, What I will note at the last local government election, it was a very significant election in that a new mayor and a new administration was elected, and there was a change of just under half the council seats. So basically you had a new mayor and half the council was changed. So that means that this is very much a different council in terms of its complexion from the last one. And obviously what any mayor of the day has to do with the council team is to share their vision for the city, but also the vision in the context of the circumstances that change from, say, 3 years ago. And obviously, we're very well aware of some of the issues that, you know, this is a very different place, I suspect, in some aspects than from 3 years ago. I want to shout out to Julie and Natalie in terms of the engagement process. And the engagement process should not just be with respect to the loudest voices. We must hear all the voices, but we must also hear the quieter voices as well as the loudest voices, and we must also engage with the complete, if you like, cross-section of our community and stakeholders. I'll just use a couple of issues which I think you may be, one issue I think you may be surprised you get a lot of submissions on, and that is for example, the proposed car park charge at Hamilton Gardens. I suspect a former deputy editor of the Waikato Times may be closer to the button on that than I might think. But if that discussion starts to move us to a bigger discussion around, right, what is a fair way to access the gardens, you know, for Hamilton residents and ratepayers? And are you better, for example, to actually look at a charge for the theme gardens component, because there's a public gardens aspect. You know, when you go to the lake or any other public, Steel Park, the lake, all the other public places, you have a certain, you know, basically free car parking around there roughly. But at what point do we start to move to charging to the theme gardens for adults who do not live in the city of Hamilton, all right? So I think that's, notwithstanding where we end up there, that's going to be a constructive discussion. The other issue is, you know, part of me says, well, why on earth would we have the Hillcrest Tamahiri library proposal in this when it's about 2 or 3 LTP's final decisions away currently? Having said that, if that's going to put a discussion around a partnership between us and Waikato District, if it's going to trigger the discussions I know Bunty is going to pursue in his committee with Councillor Kesh around the proposals around the Enderley Community Centre and potential library services, or to Norton, then, you know, that's a good thing. So I'm just using those as 2 examples where, while you put up one proposal, you may actually end up coming with a good variety of outcomes. So I've gone over time. Thank you for your indulgence, and I'll be supporting the resolution.
Yeah. Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, thank you. Just really briefly, supporting what everybody has said, but I also wanted to say that, like, by far, and I've been through a few of these now, this has been the very best process. I really, really enjoyed those sessions we had at the veranda, really enjoyed those, and I think that it's really important to acknowledge, and I know this is just a draft going out for consultation, but at this step in the process, to acknowledge the Mayor's leadership on this. So you said you were going to be inclusive, and you have, and I've really appreciated it. But I'll leave majority of that till we have a formal document to adopt at the end of the whole process. I think when we've gone out before with LTP, certainly the last LTP wasn't one of my favourite, and I don't believe I supported it for a variety of reasons. But over the years, council's often been criticised for not focusing and investing on core business. And when actually, even when you look at the 30-year infrastructure strategy, a majority of this budget is core business. It's setting us up for the growing city that we have. It is looking after the things that we have. So I would be disappointed to hear through our public hearings that this council was not focused on core business, because you just have to follow the money to know that we are. But also the main reason I wanted to say something now was, and the Mayor will remember this, it was maybe 4 or 4 years ago, I want to say, when we were in the process for the other LTP, we visited Te Awamutu's library and community hub, and we were all in our LTP process at the time, and we grabbed Waipa's LTP document with much envy, and we're going, oh, look at this, isn't this great? It tells a story, it was colourful, it was bright. So Natalie, this is a shout out to you. I mean, to all of the staff. I know you've worked incredibly hard on this, but I remember coming back into this chamber with the Mayor telling the CEO, we have to have Natalie Palmer. And so it happened. But I really appreciate the look and feel of the consultation document and how it follows back with all those cute little drawings from when we had those first sessions at the start of the term. So look, well done with that as well, and I hope that it will be the most engaging document. I think Mark is right, Councillor Bunting's right in terms of the rates increase, but if ever there was a time where we might get a few more general public people interested, I think it's with a document that looks like this. So well done to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Paula. Look, I want to shout out to the staff. I think they've all done a tremendous job. Clearly, Julie and Natalie, an additional thank you, because you've put a lot of energy and time in, and I, for one, appreciate it. At times, it must be like trying to pin mercury in a bowl. As elected members, we move very quickly and we're very fluid. So thank you. Paula, I have to shout out, actually, you have been open and transparent. I don't always agree with you, but I acknowledge you have in this process. I'm really happy to say this is my document. I don't agree with every aspect of it, but when I speak to people, I say, whatever advice, whatever views you express, please take a holistic view and try to understand all the elements that have led us to land where we are, rather than just your particular area of special focus and interest. Understand the causal nexus between each of the elements, because if you don't, you're not really helping us in our view and how we've developed it. I have to say that we may have to adjust our expectation about the amount of community feedback we get back. The reality is, I know this will come as a huge shock to you all, so please, I'm glad you're sitting, a lot of people aren't interested in what we at local government does. I know that's really upsetting. But we're not the core focus over the dinner table at night. Life, children, family, mortgages, debt, are. And what we do run a risk, and I think this is to Councillor Pascoe's point a little bit, we do run the risk that if we simply listen to the voices that do submit, they may in fact be the minority that become very vocal and we mistake them as being the majority. The reality is a lot of people won't submit and they're happy. A number of people don't care either way. So we just have to be mindful of that. I look forward to being able to listen to the feedback. I think the document is as inviting as we possibly could have made it. And I'm convinced that staff are going to go out in every possible platform to engage. But days are gone where you could place an ad on a television, radio and a newsprint and cover 80% of the population. We all consume information so differently now. So just be mindful of that. But we've done a tremendous job, and I hope we get lots of feedback from a diverse group of people and not the regulars who are just on a single item.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Taylor, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor Paula. Yeah, look, I'm not going to chew up too much oxygen because this is a moment in a time. It's not the end of the journey. It's just part of it. And in a few months' time, I think we'll all be sick of talking about the LTP because we've got a big process ahead of us. 30-odd meetings, and it can be quite tiring actually listening to the views, because some of them jar with your own views and things that are dear to you. But we have to do it, and all of us do, and that includes me. And sometimes it's over things that you don't expect. That you get a surprise, but I think some of it will be things we do expect on this occasion. I think Mark's right, the rates will definitely be a factor. Look, there's things, and I actually think it's pretty good LTP, actually, draft document. There's things in there that I hugely agree with, and there's a few things there that I just really don't like, but we're all the same in that, and the fact that I can still look around the table and share a joke with all the colleagues is really important, and I don't think it's always been that way in this council over the years. So thank you to Richard and your staff for the work so far, and just like us, you're only halfway through the marathon, I'm sure, and you'll be getting ready for the rest. And Paula, well done in getting us to this point, and the others are right. Your involvement of us all has been terrific. So good stuff. So let's get it out there and see what they say. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Van Oosten.
Like others around the table with their fine words, I acknowledge the milestone that we're now at with this part of the process, and that today we're on the threshold of taking a document with our work and staff's work out to our community for their scrutiny and their feedback. I reflect on the efforts that have gone into the production of the documents that we have before us, and the time that our committee have put into it, but that also staff have done prior to that, mostly over a summer period to our finance committee, who had to have it ready for the audit team, for Julie, Sean, Natalie, who had to finesse it into the product that we see today. Thank you, and I join the other councillors in that thanks and praise. Audit New Zealand labelled the financial strategy that underpins the plan as sound, and Councillor Ewan has talked about the foundations of that and the assumptions made needing that peer review. That's a good step for us to be taking. Mayor Southgate, you've talked about the vision statement prior to this that set the foundation of it, and you're right, it takes the aspirations of our community and this puts it into some actions and some tangible projects that can come from it. As with others, there's parts of it that I'm really excited about and others that I'm fairly lukewarm, but there's projects in there, as Councillor Angela reminds us, that are must-dos. And we shouldn't lose sight of that long list that is the work of our council and the day-to-day business as usual work. So I just hope that our vision matches the aspirations of our community as we embark on taking this out to them through all the different types of portals for them to have access to the information from. Ultimately, it's that public engagement that will be the next key step in here, and I'm willing to play my part to make sure that we can speak positively about our direction, and that can honour the feedback and comments and the options that people are choosing to take up through it. So thank you, and I look forward to the next part of this process.
Thank you. Councillor Naidi-Rose.
Thank you. Like others, to thank the team, thank the staff for what's probably been a roller coaster of a few months, which hasn't ended yet. And I think, like the others have said, I've got my personal favourites, personal opinions about every project, but at the end of the day, it will come down to what the public think and the public perspective on what we've come up with. It doesn't matter if I like or don't like something. At the end of the day, I think it's important to remember that we're here to voice the public's opinion as well. This LTP, you know, the projects that are coming up, a lot of it is core business, like Councillor Angela has talked about, but I'm also really proud that it is quite community focused, and we've put the community first in terms of all the well-beings. I'm really excited about the renewals that would be coming up, and hopefully we do get some submissions on that, taking care of what we've got, and investing into those communities that really need some love in terms of community infrastructure. Engagement, we all know historically which groups don't engage with council. So I think that this next step in the process is quite important, and that we've spent the last year, especially Mark and I, trying to engage with the youth, with ethnic groups, trying to form some sort of, trying to strengthen our relationships with those sectors. And this is when we'll know if all that foundation that we've laid will actually work. So working with our community development team, they're so passionate to get out there and get as much public feedback as they can. So I think that's where a lot of what we do will also play an important role, in that we should try and get out there with them and support what they're trying to do. So, you know, coming into the election, people were saying we want to feel more engaged with what council does. And I think that this is the pivotal moment that we get to actually engage with people, actually listen to what they're saying, and then act on it. So, yeah, excited for the next chapter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's everybody who wants to speak. Just a very short right of reply. Say thank you very much to the councillors once again, because you've added value to, I liked the word you used, Councillor Van Oosten, our plan. Because while the Mayor has the legal right to lead out a long-term plan, I was always determined that this would be a plan that we all felt we were part of. And so thank you for adding value time and again from both your portfolios and your personal passions. A bit of both, and it's been really good. One team that's been hasn't been mentioned, but of course we should thank, is Tracy and her team, David and the team, around the finances. There's a lot of work that goes in there with all the millions of numbers that get the,
Apparently it's
the budget. Yeah, it's a lot of work that goes in, you know, and I think you've delivered an exceptionally easy to understand budget for us. We've moved things about quite a lot, but I want to thank you very much for the team. We're so well served as a city with the general managers that we do have and the elected members that we do have. Now, because, you know, I came in on a promise of trying to make this council more accessible to the public. Now that's what I hope to do, is to hand it over and say, we've had a first go at this. It's your plan now, community. Tell us what you think. So I'm really excited because Sam, under Natalie's team, has done, it is Sam, isn't it? Has done the work around it. She's done the most amazing job at looking how we can spread this out into the far corners of the community. And you councillors are going to lead parts of that, not me. You'll be out amongst your community and you'll be asking them, and they'll have the chance with really good technology, iPads, to be able to make their submission on the spot instead of having to fill out the cumbersome form and send it in, and so on and so on. So there's a lot more, some modern approach. We're getting there, Natalie, and we're glad to have you on board for sure. So thank you, everyone. I think we've said enough. I think, yeah, you know, the rates are higher than we all wanted it. Let's be real. There's nobody here who really wanted to do that, but we know why we have, and now let's talk to the public about what value it adds to them. Thank you, everyone. We'll go to the vote.
The motion is carried unanimously, noting that Councillor Forsyth is absent.
Huh? We're closing the meeting, everyone.
I just want to make a comment here that I'd also just, from a chief executive point of view, we don't often get to thank you guys. From a staff point of view, this 10-year plan, for those who've been involved in many of them, is probably one of the more enjoyable. I'm not saying it was completely enjoyable, it was more enjoyable than previous ones. And also just like to thank Angela's endorsement of Natalie during the contract negotiation. There was the Angela margin in terms of how much we had to pay Natalie, so thank you so much. The ratepayer thanks you. Absolutely.
Right. Thanks to the governance team, by the way, for navigating us as always so smoothly through. And we'll do it.
Yeah, that was only if you needed it for one item.
For the theatre, but we don't.
Oh, do we have to go? Hey, Sean, do we have to go to public excluded? Sean, do we have to accept the report of public excluded to close the minutes out?
Sorry?
Do we have to accept that PX report even if we don't talk about it? No. Okay, cool.
Right, you'll be free.
We're free now?
You're free. Just got to do the press release.